Hello, this is Katie. Welcome back to my channel. I'm going to be using Rejoice Rabbit from Waffle Flower, and I'm going to be doing some watercoloring with my ZIG Clean Color Real Brush markers. I normally speed up my videos, but this one especially because it is very long. But I do show you the whole watercoloring process. It's just sped up 2 times. So I used some embossing powder. This is Bristol Smooth cardstock, and I'm going to be sealing this with clear embossing powder. So I prepped the paper with my Embossing Buddy powder bag, and then I'm using VersaFine Onyx Black, the pigment ink, and I've gotten better about just using the pigment ink without sealing it and not smearing it on the paper, which is very easy to do, but this is a very intricate design. And I also felt like just having those borders that putting embossing powder on it gives you. So I had to do 2 stamps of that, which is fine. And then I just have a little bucket of clear embossing powder. And I'm going to pour that over and then use a couple different paint brushes to kind of just brush off the where the powder is not supposed to be. For example, you'll see me brush away a little bit right by the bunny's eye. I think there's even more later. If you seal it in and then you try to color over it, you're going to see like a white dot because you've essentially sealed in white paper. And so when you go to paint over it, it doesn't look very good. So I just wanted to make sure that there weren't any spots like that, so that the paint brushing, watercoloring would look smooth. So I'm going to heat up my gun off to the side for about 10 seconds, and then I'm going to zoom in so you can see this melting, because that part is really fun. It gets like really, really rich black. You can kind of see it getting darker. I'm not sure how easy it is to see, but I'll show you kind of how it shines in the light. It looks really pretty. You can kind of see the shine in the light. It's probably easier in person. So I'm just going to cut out that section and start coloring. I've been getting these like Yoplait fancy yogurts with the little foil for a lid, and I've been saving the jars. They've been making a dairy-free coconut version, which is delicious. I recommend it. And the labels are really easy to take off, so I just save little jars. And I'm going to buy a ton of them so I can have a bunch of little art jars. And then I got a new box at Michael's to hold all my ZIG pens, because I'd originally bought, I believe, the 24 set, but then I wanted extras, so I bought a bunch at Butterfly Reflections Inc. So eventually I'll have the whole stash, but I need to take inventory of what I have so I don't buy any duplicates. So I'm using these 2 colors, and I'm going about it a different way. I had just colored recently the bear holding the little bunnies from Neat and Tangled, and I thought I would go about this a different way. Take the 2 colors and lay them down and kind of blend them out a little bit and then paint them. If you can hear dogs barking, that's the neighbor dogs. They have 3 and they're loud. And I'm also trying to kind of just bring the color and the water like flowing upward, and not trying to, go back and forth so much so that it's not splotchy, and it already looks a lot better than I did on the bear. So maybe I'll color the bear again. It was the image that was in my marker box that I took out. That was the one that I colored, but it was kind of splotchy. So this one turned out a lot better. I'm just kind of shading as I would maybe with like Copics. And then you can use water to kind of, as you would like a clear Copic, if you go outside of the lines, to kind of blend out any color that gets outside the lines. Those dogs will not stop barking. I'm sorry about that. So then I took the peachy color and tried to kind of blend that out, and it does look splotchy here, but using the water and blending that out will help a lot. So I'm definitely not a professional with these, but I hope that if you have them, you take them out and play with them. I think coloring with these for me is kind of like therapeutic art-wise. It's not like Copics at all, but I like kind of just laying down color and painting out with water. I'm realizing that it's exactly like the coloring books when I was little. I don't know if you remember those. I think I even tried to find some on eBay. I think they're there. The coloring pages that had paint in them, like strips of color you could see, and all you had to do was get a paintbrush and water, and you could essentially just color in the page. Does that make sense? Do you remember those? What I wanted to do, because I already thought of that, is take an image and kind of lay down the color in the spots where I would and let it dry and see if I could bring water to it later and have it work the same way, because that's essentially what that coloring book was. I'm not sure it's the same technology, but I think that's why I like this a lot, because I would color or just paint with water an entire one of those books and in my room, and then tear them all out and lay them all over my floor and have like an art show and make my parents come look at my art show. I remember the grocery store. They've torn it down since, but it was my favorite grocery store to go to, and they had the best coloring book selection. And that's where I would get them. And then I would go home and paint the whole thing and then have to show it off. So that's probably why I like this so much. There are many different pinks involved. I like the range that I have. I think there are more pinks. I just used the one for the ears, and I think I like how that turned out a lot. Just a very light pink. I'll end up using a darker pink on his nose. I think I do it right now. There's one called Tea Rose, which is a really nice pink. And I use that with the flowers as well. So then I paused so I could get some more color combinations. I didn't want to make you wait any longer than this video already is. And I don't really know if there's like a light source I was thinking of, or if I'm just kind of laying down color wherever. This image is a little confusing. If I saw it colored in by the person who drew it, that might help. But I kind of probably end up mixing a lot of petals and leaves and spots that are supposed to be nothing, like white background, and coloring those in. So towards the end, I'm just kind of filling in what I think is a flower or a leaf. I have a purple combination. I've got yellow that I use on a few of the flowers, and then 2 different green combinations for all the leaves that are in here. So I just go through and I kind of fill in the obvious leaves with the dark green, and then with another green, blend them out a little bit before I use watercolor. And then after I finish the flowers, or kind of near the end, there's another green combination that I just do the rest of the leaves in. And it's a nice mix of different greens. I'm not big on floral stamps. They're just not my thing. I think it's just too much, and I'm not a flower person. In fact, I'm probably coloring all of these the wrong color because I don't know what they are or what colors they're supposed to be, but it doesn't matter. I don't have floral stamps generally, but this one, because of the bunny, kind of sold me on it. And I saw a number of people coloring him or her in, and it just kind of, I don't know, I needed it. It is a lot of flowers for me, but it's not so much, and they're not so big like a lot of the floral stamps are. Just, I would never finish coloring them. They're just so big. I prefer, you know, small image sets, usually like Lawn Fawn or other sets, but this one was pretty cute. And I can stamp it in my stamping platform. The Tim Holtz stamping platforms, I have the regular size and the travel size. They're just awfully heavy. In fact, I don't know if you could tell. You can go back and see. The first time I stamped the bunny, I actually dropped the door, the stamping platform lid part, because it's so heavy. It just fell out of my hands, but luckily it stamped okay and didn't smudge everywhere. There's another purple in this set. I'm not sure what the name is, but it's more of a blue tone. And I have a little scratch piece of paper to the left where I was testing out color blends. But I'm glad that I have these two purples because they go together a lot better than the other purple I had, which would not have blended well together. It's more of in the Copic markers, like a BV number, one of the blue-violet colors. And eventually I add more purple later because I realize that I did forget at least one petal on that flower. There's a lot of watercoloring, but I didn't want to leave any of it out or just pause and finish and then have it skip most of what I'm doing. If any of you have these or you're looking to get these markers and you want, you know, some guidance on how to use them, I want you to have, you know, a full image of coloring to watch. So as just a few tips just from what I've learned, there are a lot of inks. There are a number of inks that will work with alcohol markers, Copics, or watercolor. The Lawn Fawn jet blanking is one of those. This one is not one that would work with alcohol markers. This just works with watercolor. It's a pigment ink only. You can seal it if you kind of want those lines to stay within, or if you just want it to look really neat, because I like the way it looks. You can also just use these markers without water. For example, on these leaves, I could have just blended out with the lighter green and not taken water to it. What I've noticed is that if you don't, you can kind of get like a buildup of the color and it ends up a little splotchy, like because you're using only the ink, little tiny puddles of it can just puddle up in that area and look a lot darker, and the water is what helps blend it out. But if it's a really small area and you can get it to work, then that's fine as well. And if I get too much water, I always dab it off my paintbrush. I am using paintbrushes, not a water-filled paintbrush, first of all, which I prefer. But if you start coloring in an area and you have too much water on your brush, I just go back and dab it on the paper towel and then bring the brush back onto the image and use the brush to absorb that extra water and then dab it off on the paper towel again. So instead of taking paper towel to your image, which could maybe wreck it, I just get all the water out of the paintbrush and use the paintbrush to absorb that water and then dab it on the paper towel again. But every time I dip it in the cup, I touch the tip to the paper towel and let it take out most of it, and then whatever's in the brush is all that I'm using on these images, and that seems to be the perfect amount of water. So you don't want to flood it too much. You can always bring more water onto the paper if you need to. But for smaller areas, you could definitely just use one color to color it in. They are still fun to just color with as well. I had one of the watercolor brushes. And here I did use a tiny bit of paper towel, and then I got some clean water on the brush and just blended out because I got that purple, and it works really well. So there's that. I had one of those water-filled brushes. It just doesn't work for me. I think it floods too much water out of the brush. Maybe it was the brush, but I just prefer paint brushes. It could be that I get that from my mom. I don't know. I'm not an artist by any means, but preferring an actual paintbrush over some plastic water-filled brush. If you get one that works for you, great. I also like having a bunch of different size options, and so I have all 4 sizes out next to me, and I used probably 3 different sizes on this guy. So I die cut him out after I blasted him with a little bit of air from my heat gun, and then set him aside, and I'm using the cat scrappiness. Unfortunately, I just got these today, but unfortunately the description on the website said the largest one measures approximately 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And that's why I bought them, because I wanted the biggest wonky stitched. I have the My Favorite Things one as well. I wanted the largest one to be the size of a card base. I don't know why nobody has that, but it's just a little bit smaller, but that's fine. I end up cutting another one because I cut this out of the extra piece of Bristol Smooth I had, and I ended up using Memento Tuxedo Black ink. And I think as I was putting adhesive on the back of this piece, I could feel it happening. But Memento Tuxedo Black does not work on Bristol Smooth paper, which is what I'm using for watercoloring. But I used the pigment ink, and so the sentiment smeared. And so I'm going to toss this one, and I'm just going to cut it out of my normal paper that I use Memento on, stamp it again with Memento. This is just the Michaels 110-pound white cardstock, but I'm using it on, just in case there was still black ink all over my craft sheet on top of my table. I got a piece of printer paper to protect it. And then I'm just going to glue it down first and stamp it and hope it turns out good enough, which it did. Then I realized that the bunny is too big to be above the sentiment, but that's fine. He's just going to have to cover up some of the wonky stitches. And I'm just thinking about it and being annoyed by it for like 30 seconds until I just give up and start putting glue all over the back of him. My first glue is getting a little clogged, and I'm just annoyed. I just want a glue that doesn't clog. I don't know why this is so hard, but maybe I need a pin that's longer, like one of the sewing pins, but like I just need it to be like an inch longer so it stops clogging. But I have like 5 of these in front of me, so I just grabbed another one and it was good enough. So I'm just making sure I have glue in every spot because he's a little bit warped after I heat embossed him earlier. So I'm making sure I have glue in every little corner, but not too much, and then just press him down in each area, make sure that he sticks down. And that's it. I thought about adding maybe cheeks, like pink cheeks with some white dots or something, but I didn't want to. I think it looks good the way it is, and I just like having all watercolor. So that is it, and I'm just getting rid of some brown that I went outside the lines, and there you go. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.